If you keep asking yourself, why am I always the one holding it all together? This episode is for you. We're going to talk about codependency today properly. Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Dr. Nicholas Jenner, and if you're new here, I talk about relationships and mental health in plain English. No slogans, no fluff, just honesty. Today we're going back to basics with a word people use all the time and often misunderstand: codependency. And if you're listening thinking, this might be me, I want you to pause for a second. Recognizing a pattern can sting, but it can also bring relief because things really start to make sense. So what actually is codependency? Codependency isn't simply being too nice. It's when your sense of safety, identity and self-worth becomes organized around someone else. What they feel, what they want, whether they approve. It can look like scanning the room, reading tone, overthinking messages, apologizing when you've done nothing wrong, and feeling responsible for keeping the peace. And it's important to say this clearly. Codependency often hides behind behaviors society praises: loyalty, patience, being supportive, being the strong one. The difference is boundaries. Healthy care has limits and choice. Codependent care is often driven by fear. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of being left. So let's look at what codependency isn't. Firstly, codependency is not a formal diagnosis. We're describing a relational pattern, not a disease. Second, it isn't limited to romantic relationships. It can show up with parents, adult children, friends, workplaces, anywhere your nervous system starts treating someone else's mood as your job. Thirdly, it isn't only about addiction. The term became popular through addiction systems, but the pattern exists far beyond them. And finally, it isn't a failing. It's usually an adaptation that once made sense. So where does codependency come from? Most codependency begins early, not always through obvious abuse, sometimes through emotional neglect, volatility, or even overprotection. A child learns rules like, my needs are a problem. If I upset you, I might lose you. It's safer to be useful than to be honest. Those rules don't sit in the head only, they sit also in the body. So as an adult, a partner's silence can feel like danger. A change in tone can feel like a threat. That's not you being dramatic, that's your nervous system remembering. This is why just leave advice often doesn't help. If your attachment system is terrified, it will cling, fix, apologize, overgive, anything to restore connection. And if you work in a caring profession, you'll be especially vulnerable. When you're trained to notice, soothe and support, it's easy to take that into your private life and call it love. So here's a practical self-check. This is not a diagnosis, it's just a check. If several of these are true most of the time, codependency may be part of your pattern. So here they are. You feel guilty saying no. You over-explain your boundaries, if you have them. You manage other people's moods. You ignore your needs until you're resentful. You feel more settled when you're needed. You stay long because feeling leaves like abandonment. If you're nodding along, just pause. Naming a pattern isn't a verdict, it's a starting point. So let's look at the common types. Most people are a blend, but one style tends to dominate under stress. The enabler. You protect someone from consequences. You smooth over, cover up, rescue. There's the caretaker. You become the emotional first responder. Your identity becomes the strong one. The people pleaser. You avoid disapproval, like it's a physical threat. You keep peace by shrinking. The controller. You manage outcomes to feel safe. Control can look helpful, but it's often anxiety in disguise. And the counter-dependent or the avoidant. You reject vulnerability and pride yourself on needing no one. Underneath, closeness feels unsafe, so distance becomes the coping strategy. And there's also the drama triangle. Codependent systems often run on the drama triangle: rescuer, victim and persecutor. You rescue by fixing and soothing. Then you feel unseen and overburdened. Then you snap and become critical. Then you feel guilty and rescue again. It's exhausting because needs are being acted out indirectly instead of expressed directly. The exit is adult responsibility and honest communication. Codependent patterns often get pulled into narcissistic dynamics. A highly self-focused partner benefits from someone who overgives, doubts themselves, and absorbs responsibility. That doesn't mean every difficult person is a narcissist, but if your relationship is built around eggshells, mood management, and earning basic respect, take it seriously. Let's end with what helps. Practical steps, not slogans. Number 1, self-awareness. Notice your triggers and urges. Ask what you're afraid will happen if you don't manage things. 2, boundaries. Clear, calm, consistent. Boundaries aren't threats, they're information. 3, directness. I want, I need, I'm not comfortable with. 4, conscious detachment. Caring without rescuing, connection without entanglement. 5, build a life outside of the relationship. Friendships, routine, interests, health, solitude. And 6, support. Therapy, groups, structured programs, because codependency is relational. Recovery is helped by relational support. If this episode meant something to you, don't weaponize the insight against yourself. Awareness is not a verdict. It's the beginning of change. And I'll see you next time. And thank you for listening.